Mayor Mercado is out of town this evening, and he sends his regards and regrets that he can't be here, and he asked if I would handle the proclamations for tonight. We have 3 proclamations, beginning with Color the World Orange Day, and I'm told Miss Catherine Cato cannot be with us tonight for the Color the World Orange Day, but Mr. Corley, if we could read that proclamation, please.
Whereas complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS, also known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy, or RSD, is a nerve disorder that causes chronic pain, and whereas the symptoms of CRPS or RSD are often described as burning that is out of proportion to the severity of the initial injury, and it can include swelling and extreme sensitivity to the touch. And whereas while CRPS RSD was first identified during the U.S. Civil War, it remains a poorly understood condition. There is no cure. And whereas the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke and other institutes of the National Institutes of Health support research relating to CRPS RSD. And whereas on November 1st, 2021, members of the CRPS RSD community will celebrate the 8th annual Color the World Orange Day to spread awareness of this poorly understood pain disorder. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Frank V. Mercado, Mayor of the City of Hoover, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2021 as Color the World Orange Day in the City of Hoover.
Thank you, Mr. Corley. We'll be certain to get that proclamation to Ms. Cato. Next, we will move to a proclamation celebrating National American Indian Heritage Month, and that's my understanding Ms. Pat Talty is here with us. Ms. Talty, if you'll come up, please, and we'll ask the attorney to please read the proclamation, then we'll get a picture.
Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous peoples, and whereas the contribution of the American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, and whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designated the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now, therefore, I, Frank V. Mercado, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Hoover, do hereby proclaim November as National American Indian Heritage Month and urge all of our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
Way in the middle? I think so. Okay. Glad he went over there. No, I'm over here.
Next, we will have a proclamation for National Hospice and Palliative Care Month, which is November of 2021. It's my understanding we have some representatives from the organization, including Ms. Lauren Cornelius, Ms. Nakisha Taylor, Ms. Lori Hale, and Ms. Lenitra Lane. Are they with us? Hearing none, we will at least read the proclamation, Mr. Corley.
Whereas for more than 40 years, hospice has helped provide comfort and dignity to millions of people, allowing them to spend their final months at home surrounded by their loved ones. And whereas the hospice model involves an interdisciplinary, team-oriented approach to treatment, including expert medical care, quality symptom control, and comprehensive pain management as a foundation of care. And whereas beyond providing physical treatment, hospice attends to the patient's emotional, spiritual, and family needs, and provides family services like respite care and bereavement counseling. And whereas palliative care delivers expertise to improve quality of life and relief from pain, can be provided at any time during an illness, and hospices are some of the best providers of community-based palliative care. And whereas in an increasingly fragmented and broken healthcare system, hospice is one of the few sectors that demonstrates how healthcare can and should work at its best for its patient. And whereas 1.55 million Americans living with life-limiting illness and their families received care from the nation's hospice programs in communities throughout the United States in 2020. And whereas hospice and palliative care organizations are advocates and educators about advanced health care planning, that help individuals make decisions about the care they want. And whereas the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services have pledged to put patients first in all its programs, including hospice, ensuring a coordinated and patient-led approach to care, protecting patient choice and access to individualized services based on patients' unique care needs and wishes. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Frank V. Mercado, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the City of Hoover, do hereby proclaim November 2021 as National Hospice and Palliative Care Month and encourage citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of care at the end of life, discuss their end-of-life wishes with their families, and observe this month with appropriate activities and programs.
Thank you, sir. We will ensure this proclamation gets to the organization as well. We now have a recognition we'd like to make. We're joined by some of our municipal court staff, Ms. Susan Fuquay and Mr. Jason Harris are both here. If you would mind coming down. Ms. Fuquay, you don't want to join us? Okay. Mr. Harris, if you would come down, please. On Thursday, October 21st, 2021, the Alabama Administrative Office of Courts recognized the Hoover Court Referral Program and its personnel, Mr. Harris, along with his colleagues Olivia Marshall and Katrina Square, by awarding them the George Fergeron Memorial Leadership Award for outstanding service and commitment. The Hoover Court Referral Program is part of a statewide network of court referral programs that provides education, counseling, treatment, and rehab services to those involved in our court system. This program offers help and hope to those it serves by identifying concerns and underlying factors in the causes of justice involvement and striving to empower and improve each participant in areas such as substance abuse, mental health, education, employment, and personal skills. Congratulations to you and your team on this well-deserved honor and the outstanding service you continue to give our residents and those that come through the court program. Our court, for those of you who don't know, is the go-to court in the state of Alabama for being known as the best-run court in Alabama. Ms. Susan Fuquay, who very humbly is sitting in the back, not wanting to be recognized, has been a long-time leader of our court, and staff like Mr. Harris here really do a fantastic job. So we pray you never find yourselves inside the walls of our court, but should you, be it known that you will be met with courtesy, professionalism, and a well-oiled machine of justice, as you say, Mr. Shaw, right? Yes, sir. Very good. Please join me in recognizing Mr. Harris.
I know, I'm doing the best I can.
Mr. President, if I can say a couple words.
Certainly.
Yes, as the liaison to the court, and I know several other folks have taken time to go down to the court during a day of dockets. It's so many people think it's just traffic tickets or all those things. And hopefully, I will say at a younger age, I found myself in the municipal court, and they rehabilitated me in good form. But it's so much more. It's the front lines on so many things, whether that be domestic violence, drunk driving, drug abuse, things like that. So many things that affect society, and our court does an excellent job. And I was very not surprised, but excited to see that y'all had won that award. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Now call on Mr. Alan Rice. Mr. Rice, if you come up and share a report with us, please, sir. I believe you're going to share with us on the status of some of our drainage and flooding studies.
Yes, sir, that's correct. I think the clerk has the report up. Madam Clerk, I don't find a clicker. Can you just advance them for me? Thank you, ma'am. So we wanted to be sure that we captured all the activity that's taking place citywide on the flooding issues and bring it to you in a update, which we'll provide every 2 weeks at council, as long as there's a need to do so. And I want to commend the folks who are working very hard. We've got about 8 or 9 employees pulled into a management structure that are pulling this report together. And it's good information, and I think you'll be able to see a positive change. Fortunately, some of it has already been updated since we put the report together on Thursday and Friday. So we had a total of 19 public projects reported. You'll see in a minute that you've currently authorized 16 of those. 3 of those opened up since the last council action. So we'll be bringing those to you very shortly for additional declaration. We had 352 Hoover residents make a report through either Jefferson or Shelby County EMA in response to some of the publicity that we were able to get out. That helped us tremendously with the public assistance process. You can go to the next slide, please. We are told informally that the county, Jefferson County and Shelby County and the state of Alabama have all met the thresholds for a declared disaster, so we're eagerly awaiting that formal word from FEMA, but it does appear that disaster declaration will be forthcoming. That opens up some additional channels of assistance to our citizens. So we wanted to take a minute and talk about how to get help. It's very important that homeowners and property owners understand that if they had damage from the flood, they have got to file a claim with any personal or private insurance that they may have. It's our understanding that the FEMA project, or the FEMA programs rather, will only pay for uninsured loss, so they will require a proof of an insurance claim having been filed with private property insurance. It's very important that folks take pictures, if they've not already done so, of damaged homes and belongings and buildings, make a list of any damaged or lost items to the extent that they can. We know it's hard to be comprehensive with that sometimes, but certainly if they have things like electronics that have serial numbers or computer equipment or anything as specific as they can be on their loss. If not, if they can just make a list and provide any pictures they may have of those items and the flooding damage itself. Keep, of course, any disaster-related receipts, bills, invoices, estimates, quotes. This could be from water removal. It could be from replacement of flooring or furniture. It could be from work that is performed by contractors or materials that the homeowner or business owner has purchased to do work on their property. Just keep good records of all that. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and scan that and maintain it electronically if possible, because you'll probably have to submit it electronically before it's all over with. And then lastly, we caution everybody who's having any work done, but certainly at a time like this where we have a lot of these projects around the city, please only use contractors that are licensed, bonded, and insured. Ask for a business license. Ask for a copy of their insurance certificate. If somebody pulls up in your driveway in a pickup truck and says, I do flood remediation, send them on down the road. Make sure it's a contractor that you reached out to. If it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So don't take a price that sounds better than all the other prices you heard, because you will be opening the door to months and years of heartache, probably not getting your repairs done. If anybody has any questions about that, they can contact the City of Hoover Revenue Department or the Business Building Inspections Department to vet and find out if these people are properly licensed both in the city and in the state of Alabama. They can reach either one of those departments by calling 205-444-7500 and asking for revenue if it's a business license question, or building inspections if it's a question about a particular contractor. So we will continue to update that. We're learning more. We learned a little bit more this morning about the public assistance and individual assistance process, and we'll continue to update this entire report, including this section. Anyone who's in need of local assistance. So I want to be really clear. This is different than the FEMA federally funded mitigation efforts to rebuild. Anybody who's in need of immediate local assistance, if they've been displaced from their home and they need assistance with hotel lodging, or if they lost possessions to the extent that they need some things replaced in the immediate term, they can contact 211, just dial 211 on the phone, and they'll be connected to United Way, to the Central Alabama office of the United Way, and they are maintaining a list of resources that can help more immediately and more locally. Now, United Way is not in a position to fix structures or make major repairs. That's more emergency assistance for people who have been impacted. And again, when we hear from FEMA about the disaster declaration and what that process looks like and who's available for what, we will continue to put that out in these updates. Next slide, please, ma'am. So there you can see the number of site visits. That number has gone up. We've done site visits to all 19 of the public projects, including the 3 that you haven't seen yet on your agenda. And as of Thursday, we had completed 50 private damage assessments out of the 352 reports that we received. You'll have an agenda item upcoming about getting some outside assistance so that we can move that process more rapidly. I think you gentlemen are all aware, we have 3 engineers and 2 inspectors. So that's 5 people in the engineering department who can go out and try to tackle this process. Some of these assessments are more complex than others. And so you'll have an agenda item tonight that asks for an allocation to assist by bringing in support from 5 different engineering firms to help get our folks caught up and make sure that we have accurate damage assessment for each individual property owner in the city. This is not just on the city projects, but on private projects as well. And then they'll help us with project management on some of these 19 construction projects. As you can imagine, we already had capital projects underway. We already had road projects. We already had things that you approved in this year's annual budget that we needed to launch on unrelated to the flood. That's enough to say grace over for our engineering department. So we're looking for some outside assistance on engineering and project management to help with that as well. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, before you move, you can see on the map how kind of the 352 and the 19 were distributed pretty equitably across the city limits. We know, of course, there were some areas that experienced, just because of topography, a high impact, but we had many different neighborhoods across the city who had impacts from that particular storm. You can go ahead, thank you. So just a quick update on debris removal. We have 14 vehicles operating full-time. They're estimated to do about 23 loads per day on average, depends on the size of the load. That's about 285 cubic yards per day that's being pulled out of the city. And we've asked AmWaste with their boom operations that we contract through our garbage contract and our own public works department to focus first and foremost on flooding damaged items. So couches, carpet, padding, furniture, construction materials, things that have had to be removed from homes due to water damage. We really want to get that off the shoulder of the road first. And so that is causing some delays in tree limbs and other debris removal and bagged leaves and things like that. And it's just a matter of priorities. We want to try to get everybody's possessions up and out of the way first that were damaged by the flood, and then we'll go back and we'll start working on the vegetation. The top hot spots of last week, that doesn't mean that's the only place that debris was removed. That means where we had the heaviest concentration of boom truck operations. And the reason that these particular neighborhoods are reflected is because other neighborhoods were priority the 2 weeks prior to that. So this is just going to kind of give you a snapshot of where the trucks have been operating in the preceding couple of weeks leading up to each one of these reports. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that there are a total of 19 public projects. You're only seeing 16 so far because those are the only ones you voted on. Good news is this information is already outdated. It actually should be 8 pending, 5 underway, and 3 completed because Paulette Drive was completed. And my understanding was the road was reopened about 3 o'clock today, Mr. Reeves? Yes, sir. Closer to 5, but yes, sir. Okay, thank you. So the road's been resurfaced. It's reopened. We've taken some mitigation measures off of the right-of-way, which you authorized through public purpose to protect that new road so that we're not back in 3 or 6 or 12 months rebuilding the newly rebuilt road. So the numbers are moving nicely. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. That table shows you the status, and of course the information on the left just ties it to the specific council resolution for tracking purposes. But the second line down, Paulette Drive, actually should be green at this point because it is complete. So we really have 3 projects complete and 5 underway, which means that quotes have been received, money's been allocated, the award has been made, and the contractor's been released to go do the work. So several of those 5, they've either already mobilized or they're in the process of mobilizing. And that leaves us, I think we said 8 that are pending. That means that we're awaiting quotes, essentially. They've all been assessed and emergency measures have been taken, and we're just waiting on quotes from various contractors. We'll go with the most reasonable, responsive quote, and we'll put them to work. Next slide, please. And then finally, on financial impact, you'll see these numbers change every time we get together. But you so far have authorized $1.3 million in public projects. Of that, $330,000 has been allocated. That number will go up dramatically as we continue to get quotes back over the coming couple of weeks and we put people to work. Outside assistance is the issue that you'll vote on here in a few minutes. I think the request is about $310,000 or $320,000. We talked about on Thursday night for the outside engineering work, and we'll track that as well, how much is allocated and how much has been expended to date. And then the bottom number, the $27,019, is basically emergency measures that were taken on the night of the 6th and the morning of the 7th. So that's a lot of overtime, some materials and supplies, predominantly overtime, to manage the storm itself. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the council?
Mr. President, I just have a statement for you, Mr. Rice, and for Mr. Reeves and your department. I know that a lot of people are not in the position that Hoover is in financially, thanks to some of the things we've done, but it was great that you guys jumped on it right away, started looking at issues, and that we as a city were able to go ahead and start taking care of things now rather than waiting on the assessments to be done and the emergencies to be declared, that we were able to go ahead and get started on some of these things right away is a great thing, and that you're so on top of it now, even before the counties have finalized their assessment in the state and declared the emergencies, that we are that far ahead of the game to where that comes online, we can really jump forward in our response to this.
Well, I appreciate that. And the mayor and I and the staff and I have talked about how fortunate we are that the council approaches things the way that you all do from a financial perspective. We had some CARES Act money. We didn't have a particular purpose for it. We put it in the bank. It's there. We ended last year in the black. We didn't go on a spending spree. We put it in the bank. It's there. So the cash has been on hand to be able to do what you're saying, Mr. Posey, and that is to mobilize immediately. We will pursue, of course, any available reimbursement from the federal government to the city. We may be able to recoup some things based on some emergency repairs and infrastructure work we've had to do, but we'll do our best to get back as much of this as we can, but we really appreciate the council and your fiscal orientation to be sure that we have money sitting there when we have a flood or whatever the next event is that takes place. It's made a huge difference.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Rice? Mr. Rice, we'll get to public comments at the end of the meeting. We'll get to you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rice, while we've got you, we're 30 days into our new AmWaste contract, and I know we talked about the growing pains that naturally come as a result of these changeovers. Would you mind just giving us a quick update on where you see us 30 days into the new arrangement?
Sure, absolutely. We met Thursday. We've met several times, but most recently we met on Thursday with AmWaste leadership here at City Hall. I had another call with them this morning. So a couple of the problem issues, and we knew that there was going to be some transition issues with new drivers, new routes, new collection days. There's a certain amount of confusion to be expected on everybody's part. We've had a few cases where people have called in and said, hey, they missed my service, they didn't pick me up. And once we talk to them, we figure out that they're still putting their carts out on what were their previous days, and they just weren't aware that the days had changed. So we're able to rectify that pretty quickly. And then 5 days later, we had a flood. And the flood has done a couple things that have impacted AmWaste. It washed away a lot of garbage carts that were still out on the street the night of the 6th. A lot of those people lost their carts, and so that's put an extra layer of activity to try to identify where and process those requests and get new carts out. Some of these people all of a sudden had no cart to put their trash in. The other thing it did, I mentioned earlier about the flood damage debris, it has put tons and tons of additional debris in the system to be picked up. It's understandable. I mean, if somebody's carpet is soaked, they want to get it out of there and they want to get it gone, but it's just put a lot more content in the system than AmWaste was prepared for. They were prepared for the typical 10 boom truck routes and a couple of backup trucks. So we're back to having Public Works jump in and assist with that, and that's okay. This was an extraordinary event. We've had some issues with backdoor collection. Most people are aware that we have a few hundred city residents that for issues with documented medical need, they receive service at their back or the side of their house because they are impaired or impeded from bringing their cart all the way to the end of their driveway. And we drilled into that, and on Thursday we found out it was a software problem at AmWaste where they were trying to update from our list of who has backdoor service, and it wasn't updating to their driver's software. So their drivers were not getting that information. They have plugged that hole. We found a problem on our end where we're getting, an extreme number of reports, lost cans and missed service and things like that. And we had some things set up in our phone system to route some of those calls to additional human beings. So ideally, every caller would get a person. And we found out some of that routing wasn't occurring like it was supposed to. So we fixed that. And we've got the clerk's office and a couple other folks back in the mix helping catch those overflow calls so that people get a person, because when you leave a voicemail, you don't know if we got it, you don't know if we're acting on it, it tends to make you want to call back, and that just increases the number of reports. So got that straightened out. In our call this morning, AmWaste management mentioned that they're bringing additional supervisors back in like they had the first 2 weeks of service. They have been able to map which routes are problematic in terms of missed service Driver didn't understand that they were supposed to empty the cart, but also get the hand piles of material next to the cart. So they're assigning additional supervisors to those routes as long as needed. And they're going to work from a training standpoint to be sure drivers have the right route. They understand when you go up one side of the street, you got to be sure you come back down the other side of the street. Miss Smith has a little alleyway and she's got backdoor service and that's where she keeps her car. Just a lot of those little nuances. But they're putting time and attention to it. I do want to say it's a high volume of issues to work through right now. But Amwaste is extremely responsive, and that's the first time I've experienced that. And when we call them, when we email them, late at night, on the weekend, I get a reply, and they have a truck out the next day looking for the problem. And, you know, we'd rather not have a fumble, but if we have a fumble, we sure do want a good recovery. And I have to praise Amwaste on their recovery so far. They've been very diligent in making sure. I think Mr. Shaw brought an issue to my attention today. Turned it around to the right people, and I think they've already rectified it. And that was a large number of addresses. It wasn't one house. So, you know, we'll get to the point where this is stable. There will always be issues, right? There'll always be a miss. There'll always be a can that goes missing and has to be replaced. It's just not a perfection game. The best we can ask is diligence and that they are responsive to us and to you all as you represent your constituents. And so far, I'm seeing a lot of responsiveness.
Any questions on that topic for Mr. Rice? Very good, sir. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We have a couple of candidates for public office with us. They've asked for a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. We'll begin with Miss Adrienne Powell. She is a candidate for Jefferson County Circuit Judge, place 23. Ms. Powell, welcome.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. My name is Attorney Adrienne Powell, and I am a private practice divorce attorney in Birmingham. I have been in private practice for 13 years, and I am currently running for Circuit Court Judge, Domestic Relations Division, place 23. Domestic Relations Division is divorce court. So at this particular time, there is an open seat. The current sitting judge is retiring. So I'm asking for everybody's support. And if you want any information, I did bring literature here with me today to pass it out to you, but you are welcome to look me up online, find out any information you need about me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, I just ask for your support on my campaign trail. Oh, by the way, the primary is May 24th, 2022. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Brad Tompkins. Mr. Tompkins is a candidate for House District 15 in the Alabama House of Representatives. Mr. Tompkins, welcome.
I am Brad Tompkins, and I'm running for, as you stated, Alabama House seat for District 15. This is the House seat that Alan Farley is vacating. With the redistricting has areas of Hoover included in the district all the way over to the Galleria. I moved to Alabama after graduating from Purdue University about 30 years ago. It was cold and miserable up there, and I'd had enough. So when I graduated college, I put everything in a U-Haul, strapped a snowblower to the front of it, and drove south until somebody asked me what that was on front of the truck. And that happened to be here in Birmingham, Alabama. I met my wife sitting back there smiling at me at Hunter Street Baptist Church. We have 2 teenage girls, and we all still attend Hunter Street. In 2003, after working for others for a while, in 2003, I started a home construction business. And does anybody want to guess how long that lasted? 2008, maybe? Well, the financial crisis of 2008 forced me to work through some significant struggles with that business, how to unravel it and make sure everyone got paid. But during that difficult time, I learned several important life and business lessons. Thank you. So in 2008, I had to find something to do, so I started another business, which was an engineering business, specializing in factory automation. We did, there's a number of businesses here that are related to automotive production. So we do business with the automotive plants, automotive tier one. That's about 50% of our business, and the other 50% is general manufacturing in the area. My wife and I have a Fab Fruit, which is a smoothie bowl place over here in Stadium Trace Village. You ought to try it when you get a chance. So about 5 years ago, I was asked if I would join the Bessemer Industrial Development Board. They had seen the success that my business had had, and since I was a Bessemer resident, I live right behind Lake Cyrus there in Bessemer. They asked me if I would join the board, and that was about 5 years ago. In the 5 years I've been on the board, we've seen a lot of success, bringing some big names that you may have heard of to the area, right? Carvana, Amazon, and others. But that's not all the board does. You know, the board's got about 30 other properties, and we try to find businesses and incubate businesses in the city. That's something I'd like to do, frankly, for the whole district. And that's really what planted the seed for me wanting to run for the House District seat. I'm a pro-life, pro-law enforcement, pro-business conservative. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe our government needs to be fair, compassionate, and have integrity. Voting decisions will be made based on conservative principles. So my primary objective as someone who represents District 15 is to be a force for economic development. It is important that we create and retain jobs, grow the tax base, and improve our infrastructure. This will increase the standard of living for our communities. If you find me the best candidate available, I would ask that you vote for me, Brad Tompkins, for Alabama State House District 15. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tompkins. I know he mentioned her, but he's joined tonight by his wife and his mother-in-law, so welcome to both of you to the Hoover City Council. Thank you for being here. I want to recognize one guest before we get into our agenda, Hoover City Council President Emeritus, Mr. Gene Smith. Gene, welcome. Welcome back. We'll now move to our consent agenda. I'm sorry, I'm working off of two pieces of paper here tonight. Bear with me. The consent agenda is put together as items that the council deems as non-controversial that we will pass with one vote. I would ask, is there any item on the agenda that any member of the council would like removed and moved to the regular agenda?
Yes, Mr. President, I have one resolution number 6585-21, if that could be moved outside the consent agenda.
I believe that's item number 22, so we will move that to the consent agenda. Item number 22. Is it? Okay. 22.
The item is 6585-21.
Thank you. Any others the council wish to have moved to the regular agenda? Is there any member of the public who's here to speak about any one of these items? If so, we will move that item to the regular agenda. Seeing none, Mr. Corley, if you'll read the items.
Item 6 is the approval of minutes from the October 12th special called meeting and the October 18th, 2021 meeting. Resolution number 6571-21 approves an alcohol license for Kamalis Creole Kitchen, LLC, doing business as Kamalis Creole Kitchen, 611 Doug Baker Boulevard, Suite 205, Hoover, Alabama. Ryan Michael Emery, Executive. Resolution 6572-21 approves an alcohol license for Express Food Mart, doing business as River Chase BP at 3641 Lorna Road, Hoover, Alabama. Nuruddin Durrani, Executive. Resolution 6573-21 authorizes the mayor to enter into agreements with Gonzalez Strength and Associates, Gresham Smith, Mott McDonald, Neil Schaefer, and AG Gaston Construction and Engineering to assist with assessments and program management. Resolution 6574-21 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with QCHC, Inc., aka Quality Correctional Health Care, in substantially the form attached to the resolution, as well as any other documents necessary for the execution of the agreement. Resolution 657521 determines that certain personal property listed in the resolution is not needed for public or municipal purposes and directs the disposal of said surplus property. Resolution 657621 authorizes the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to purchase stop-loss insurance with Travelers Insurance for the city of Hoover. Resolution 657721 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with Johnson Controls in substantially the form attached to the resolution, as well as any and all other documents necessary for the execution of the agreement. Resolution 657821 amends the budget for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2022, as set forth in the resolution. Resolution 652521 appoints Alan Bolton as a member to the Industrial Development Board. Resolution 657921 appoints James Robinson as a member to the Industrial Development Board. Resolution 658021 appoints Matt Neighbors to the Industrial Development Board. Resolution 658121 reappoints Lindsay Baxley as a member of the Public Park and Recreation Board. Resolution 658221 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Hoover Bells. Resolution 658321 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Hoover Historical Society. Resolution number 658421 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Hoover Service Club. And Resolution 658621 authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with Omega Bank Card Services.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval of the consent agenda. If I could make one correction to resolution number 658121, that is for the appointment of Ms. Lindsay Baxley, not for the reappointment. So we just make that note. We have a motion and second for approval of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the items carry. I would like to recognize Ms. Lindsay Baxley, who's in the chamber. She's joined tonight by her husband, Chad, her son, Bowen, and you've already heard from their daughter, Ansley. Ms. Baxley, would you please stand to be recognized? Welcome to the Park and Rec Board. We'll now move to our regular agenda. The regular agenda, we will take each item one by one. After the attorney has read each item, the council will have an opportunity to ask any questions, and then we will turn over to questions or comments from members of the public for each item before we take a vote. We'll begin with item number 22, resolution number 658521. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Hoover City Schools Foundation.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6585-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the members of the council?
Madam Clerk, I intend to abstain from this vote.
Madam Clerk, I also intend to abstain from this vote.
We have two abstentions. Any other questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? We have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please note the two abstentions. Item number 24 is ordinance 21-2545, a second reading. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends section 7-8 of chapter 7, Fire Prevention and Protection of the Municipal Code of the City of Hoover.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2545.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. Any questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Chief, anything you need to say?
No, sir.
Very
Just
good.
have some questions.
We have a motion and second for adoption of the ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy? Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 7 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and ordinance is adopted. Item number 25, resolution 658721. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares the weeds and/or grass located on the property located at 2240 Tyler Road and 1715 Keswick Circle as public nuisance and orders the abatement thereof. Or Keswick Circle's been removed, so just 2240 Tyler Road.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6587-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. Mr. Martin, any updates on this one?
I hear there is a frost potentially coming this next weekend. I've never been so excited about that. But we do have this particular property. As you can see, the pictures were taken today. It is in pretty rough shape. Still needs to stay on the agenda for the declaration of a nuisance so that we can start the abatement process. The sooner the better on this one because it's in really bad shape.
Very good. Any questions from the members for Mr. Martin? Any questions or comments from members of the public? We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. We'll now move to some first readings. No action will be taken at this meeting. However, we will reconvene on November 15th to hear a second reading and potential vote on these items, beginning with item number 26, resolution number 656121. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares for the abatement of nuisance due to weeds and/or grass on the property located at 2049 Sweet Gum Drive.
This piece of property was cut to the satisfaction of the city and just needs to be withdrawn from the agenda.
Mr. Martin, you concur?
That's correct.
Mr. Posey.
All right, Mr. President, I move to withdraw resolution number 6561-21.
Second.
We have a motion and second to withdraw the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And the item's withdrawn. Item number 27, resolution number 6588-21, first reading. Mr. Corley.
This resolution establishes the Healthcare Authority of the City of Hoover.
We will meet again on November 15th to hear the second reading and vote on that item. We'll now move to some first readings and public hearings for November 15th. Again, no action to be taken on any of these. Item number 28, resolution 6570-21, Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants conditional use approval for home daycare for property located at 3599 Deerfield Drive.
Item number 29, resolution number 6569-21, Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants conditional use approval for a dog daycare for property located at 2153 Clearbrook Road.
Item number 30, ordinance number 21-2546, first reading. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends ordinance number 263 for the City of Hoover, Alabama, entitled the Zoning Ordinance of the City of Hoover, Alabama.
And finally, item number 31, resolution number 6568-21, Mr. Corley.
This resolution grants conditional use approval for entertainment district for property located in the Stadium Trace Village on lot K2 and A1, Hoover, Alabama.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rice, could I call on you too, please, for an announcement regarding a public meeting coming up for Public Works issues?
Thanks, Mr. President. We have received the final report and correct maps from Shoal Engineering on the Green Valley Drainage Study, and we want to announce the public presentation, which will be on Thursday, November 18th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. It's not a work session week that week, and Shoal is available to come present their work, so we'll have that, and it should be easily viewed by everybody, and we'll have copies of information to distribute that night as well.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our agenda. I ask if there are any questions or comments from members of the body.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make an announcement that the library board is seeking to fill 2 unfilled terms. We're taking applications until Friday at noon, and they can be turned in at the city clerk's office or emailed to her. Instructions for those vacancies are included on the city's webpage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any others from members of the body? I know we had a drizzly Hoover Hayride and Family Night the other night. So thank you, Mr. Rice and your staff, Ms. Coball, for yet another wonderful event that we pulled together. Very well done. We'll now open it up to public comments. We welcome any comments that any member of the public may have on any topic. We do ask that those comments be held to 3 minutes, and we ask that you come to the microphone and begin by giving us your name and address so that we may record you for the minutes of the meeting. Up first, yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I am in Vestavia on Shalford Circle, which is right below the Element Apartments there on Rocky Ridge Road. It's the first time I've ever had to come here because everything been all right till now. The sewer systems that are up there behind the apartments, whose responsibilities are they? Are they the city's responsibilities for the drainage into the sewer systems? Is that the city's responsibility?
Sir, we have some engineers here with us, so we would be happy to connect you with those so you can have a conversation after the meeting if that's okay.
Okay.
Can I get your name, please?
My name is Danny Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T-T, and I'm kind of the self-appointed watchdog of our area.
Yes, sir.
And I'm up here helping some people, you know, get some answers on why the water keeps coming over into our area and flooding our area, and also why we reported it to the apartments, but they're putting all of their trash. When people move, they take all their stuff out back, put it in the parking lot, which is right there at the drainage. They've been addressed more than one time before they sold it. Now it's back there again, so that means the water's running everywhere. And somebody said they've already addressed them before, so I don't know because I haven't.
What's the address of that picture there?
Well, that's the Elements Apartments. It's the back area of the Elements Apartment where the construction area, where the parking lot is. Where, right, Hoover's Elements Apartment, yes, sir.
Okay.
We're right on the line.
Gotcha.
But all the water goes in and runs over down the hill, and we had a lot of flooded apartments. Mine was flooded, but it's from something else. Fortunately, I was the only one that has flood insurance.
Very good.
But if I could talk to somebody afterwards, I would appreciate it. And like I've told my people, you come here, you attack an issue. You don't attack people. I taught that for 20 years in the military. It works every time.
You did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves or Mr. Miller, would one of you connect with Mr. Barrett after the meeting just to determine who has responsibility for the sewer system? Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi. I'm Melissa Watts, and my husband can't be here this evening. He's immune compromised, and we can't have him exposed to everybody, so I'm here representing our family. It's an honor to stand before you this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak not only for my family, but for many people in our community. And I also want to tell you how impressed I am at the progress that has already been made. I did not realize that much work had already been done, and I want to say thank you. But it's been 3.5 weeks since our lives were all affected by the flood. The overwhelming loss, the tremendous feeling of helplessness and hopelessness as water rushed into our homes. My husband, Guardian, is a disabled Navy veteran and suffers from numerous service-related health issues complicated by MS and CRPS, which I think is interesting that y'all happen to honor that here today. Thank you. He has medical equipment, oxygen tanks, an electric wheelchair, etc., that I had to start snatching up out of the water and get him upstairs to safety. You cannot imagine the tremendous amount of stress and anxiety we have gone through every single time we know it is going to rain. But through it all, we've come together as a community. We have developed friendships where there were none, as our hearts have been knit together through adversity. My family has been in that house for 46 years. Not until the construction work on Patton Chapel Road began did we take on water. We have flooded 3 times since March of 2020, so please don't try to tell me that the water I took on October 6th was due solely to a rare 500-year flood. I have walked door to door and spoken to dozens of neighbors and have heard the same story from people that have been in their homes 18 years, 39 years, 27 years, and on I could go. Some of these residents have flooded as many as 5 times since construction on Patton Chapel Road began. This is the 3rd time we've lost our carpet, but this time we also lost antiques, paneling, computers, and other furniture. We used to host Shabbat dinners at our home every Friday evening. Our house was a place of worship and peace. Now we live on concrete floors in complete chaos. I have a notary loan signing business as well that was greatly impacted by this. It was obvious from the beginning when they started pouring the concrete curbs that something was wrong. When I questioned the Jefferson County project manager about the problem, he stated that they had poured the concrete and pavement according to plan, but the grade had been shot wrong. I emphatically asked him why, when he saw, since he was supposedly out here several days a month, that it was off. Why didn't you completely stop the project and double check the grade before using our tax dollars to continue to pour the concrete? In addition, the contractors have poured dirt over the manhole covers up and down Patton Chapel and then poured the concrete sidewalks over them. Now they are having to come back and cut up the concrete, locate the manhole covers, and raise them to the level of the sidewalks and re-pour the sidewalks. In addition, many of our street signs were taken down and never put back. It has been said, the only thing for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. I am looking into the faces of good men that we elected, good men that for lack of direction or information have done nothing. I stand before you today to say, fix it. As you drive about town, you will begin to see sandbags in front of our homes that say, fix it. These are your citizens and voters in our great community that want to remind you that we expect from you what we expect from you as our elected officials. Get the information, make a plan, and fix it.
Thank you, Ms. Watts. May we get your address, please, ma'am?
1716 Patton Chapel Road. And I have something for each of you. Stand back, says fix it. You can use it as a paperweight. Fix it, Mr. Shaw. Fix it, Mr. Lyden.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Watts, thank you for being with us, and thank you for your comments. I'm sure most folks are aware, I want to make sure everyone's aware, Patton Chapel Road has long been a county road. And the project that those of us that live on Patton Chapel, including me, have been watching the construction take place for about a 2-year period now. And like you, I am concerned with the speed at which that project is moving. And I want to invite you to join me on Thursday, November 4th at 9 o'clock at the Jefferson County Commission meeting downtown at the Jefferson County Courthouse. I'll give you a ride if you'd like it. They'll also be meeting on November 18th and again on December 2nd at 9 o'clock. They too are your elected leaders, our elected leaders, and they too need to hear from us on how we feel like this project's going. So I hope you'll join me there. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Katie Bennett. I live at 3428 Lock Haven Drive. I will also ride with y'all on November 4th. But we're glad to be here talking to y'all tonight. So many of us are here, neighbors on the same street. On October 6th, we flooded on Lock Haven Drive. It's called Batson Creek, but it's really just a drainage ditch, and it floods often, but never as bad as it did that Wednesday evening. The thing is, I have flood insurance, and that it's all going to be fine until it happens again, you know. And the thing is, there's nothing that we as individual homeowners can do to prevent that flood from happening. Every time there's a forecast, it's gotten to the point where my boss is like, "Are you going to have to go home?" Like it. My coworkers know if it rains, I'm in trouble. And it's disheartening because we've made this investment in this home and we don't want it to be a waste. There's nothing that we can do as individuals to take care of it. The creek breaches its banks, and it's not just rainfall, as she mentioned. One of my neighbors has a photo that shows it looks like waves are crashing onto her porch. There's a current. It's coming from the drainage ditch. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that those projects that y'all have going, that looks like y'all are making great progress, and I'm glad to know you're on it. Our street wasn't on there. We want to be on there. We need to be fixed. And I know that we're in a tricky part of town as far as, I think we're Jefferson County, but we're Hoover, and you know, so I know that we need to speak to multiple municipalities, but everybody's got to get in on it because the water doesn't care where the county line is, you know, or the city limits. So anyway, thank you for hearing me, and I just hope that, you know, something will be done. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. If I could before the next speaker, Mr. Barrett, I believe you're still back in the back. Mr. Rice has just made us alerted that a case has already been opened for the trash at Element Apartments. Some governments move slow. This one doesn't move slow. So we're already on that trash over there, and we'll get that cleaned up for you, okay? Stick around for the engineers to talk about the sewer system. Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Chick Carroll, and I live at 3416 Lock Haven Drive. I think there are 6 of us all that live on the same street, and we're here about the same creek that she was talking about. It runs in back of all our houses. And Mr. Shaw, I think you're our representative in that area, but it is a part of a sewage system, and I guess, I mean, it's, you know, the drainage system, and it really, I think it got started because the traffic signal right at the top of the hill there, it's Wisteria, Rocky Ridge. One corner is Vestavia, that's where they're building the big houses. I've forgotten the name of the big subdivision up there, but South Haven or something like that, but anyway. But, you know, every time that they started building those houses, the water, the muddy water started coming off that hill. Came right down there into that creek, and it goes right in back of our houses. And they were supposed to have had 3 retention ponds up there. I've yet seen a first drop of water in any one of those ponds. I don't know if they're ineffective or whatever, but I do know that when they started building those houses, that's when our problems started getting worse. And I've been flooded out 2 times. I've been there for 17 years, and this is the last year and a half. It's been, you know, I've been flooded out 2 times, and it's getting under my house. And you know, you can spend thousands of dollars to have your house encapsulated under the bottom, and then you look under there, and there's, you know, 2 feet of water under there. And it's coming out. When the storms quit, the next day I went out with a rake, and I raked up, it took me an hour and a half to rake all the bottles, you know, plastic bottles and balls of every kind, tennis balls and, you know, volleyballs, softballs, everything, trash of it. I spent $200 and something putting out mulch in my around my bushes. There's not the first nugget of left. I mean, it all washed away. And I mean, you know, and it's coming from it's coming out of that creek back there. And I've watched my back lot get undercut by the creek. And probably the next rain, I'll probably lose about 5 feet of my land. It'll just drop off. And we don't know what the answer is, because every time we go to somebody, they say, well, it's the county or it's somebody else. And nobody wants to take any responsibility for it. And I noticed that we weren't on this list of 19 projects or whatever it was. And we'd like to try to get on that list about this creek behind all of our houses there, because she just spoke in front of me. I'm 4 houses up from her. I do not qualify for flood insurance because I'm just out of the range of it. I'm 3 houses beyond it. But some of the people further down have flood insurance. I don't think any of the rest of the people here do. But anyway, I'll not speak for them. But anyway, Lock Haven Drive, Mr. Shaw, if you could help us out there, we'd appreciate it if we could get put on that list of projects.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, could I talk about Lock Haven real quick? Thank you, sir. And we are all at large. We don't have districts, but I live right up the hill from that. I've been talking with a lot of folks on Lock Ridge Trail, which is just on the other side of that. Yes, sir. And as you mentioned, the FEMA floodplain, is right there. So I know they've been doing a lot of talking with FEMA on requalifying that, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. But there's 2 outstanding questions, and Mr. Rice, this is one of the many things we're looking at is talking with FEMA about that area, because that is a floodplain, but also in relief for you know, people without flood insurance, because that is a tricky area. We also have an outstanding question on that waterway. You know, where does it fall? How is it maintained? What can be done in those situations? And right now, we don't know if it's Corps of Engineers. We don't know if it's county. We don't know if it's state. We're trying to get to the bottom of that question.
Some bulkheads built out through there, you know, retaining walls and stuff down through there.
Yes, sir. That's one of the outstanding questions, is that creek and how that can be addressed.
Yes, sir.
My name is Thomas Fulmer, and I live at 3424 Lock Haven Drive. When I've called before about problems, I've always been told that it was someone else's jurisdiction. I've called the city hall here, was told that, and I don't know, I didn't record who I talked with. I've called City of Birmingham, I was told it was not their problem. I've called Vestavia Hills, not their problem. I don't know who's causing it or why, or if anyone's causing it, but a lot of the huge rocks that have washed into the creek have come from upstream. They're huge rocks, some so big, concrete slabs, huge slabs. I've moved a lot of, I've got down in the creek several times and moved a lot of the rock so the water can flow because it's being backed up. I've lost already about 3 feet of my backyard. And I have a picture here of a fence on the house lower than mine or below mine. The entire bank is washed off and the entire wood fence is in the creek. It caved the whole thing in. Now, I don't know, there's some other pictures here where the water has washed up on the fence. My fence is covered with debris from the, and by the way, I paid several $1,000s just recently to have my entire crawl space encapsulated. All the debris was pulled out, 20 mil plastic was put down, even up the walls. So I have no water under my house, but the yard was covered with debris. But it cost a lot of money to do that. I'm willing to do whatever it is because I thoroughly like the neighborhood and I want to stay there. But I have a lot of pictures here from some of the big trees on the opposite side of the creek from me, directly behind me, have totally been undercut. One big pine washed down and was hanging across the creek. When this last rain hit, it disappeared. It went down the stream. And I'm sure it's blocking the stream somewhere down there. But there are 2 other huge trees that, and I have pictures here where they're totally undercut. They can't last long. They're going to fall. And what damage they'll do, I don't have an idea. But they are going to fall. There are two houses across the street from me that have had concrete block walls, retention walls built along the creek. They're caving in. There are none on my side of the creek, but on Lock Ridge side, there are 2 long concrete block walls. But like I say, they won't last long because they're being undercut, totally undercut. I would appreciate if somebody would look into something and let us what's going on. Most all the houses on Lock Haven Drive, and I know her house basement's been flooded 2 or 3 times. And it comes up from that creek and it comes in to the top to it. They won't drain. And Chick's had his done and several others have had their houses. Her fence was totally blown down. I mean, we're losing money daily from this drainage problem. And it can be fixed, but it's going to take some coordinated effort to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Chris Tant. I live at 3436 Lock Haven Drive. Mike, I'm the one that always Facebook messages you about our sidewalks, hopefully on Lock Haven Drive. And there is a reason that the dog park was built on Lock Haven Drive, because it is a flood zone. You cannot build homes on there. So my question to you guys, number one, why were houses built in this area anyway? Because you can't build houses at the dog park. Then you've got, a block up, and you've got these houses that are flooding constantly now. I've lived there 30 years, and we have never had this problem. We've had a little bit of flood, but never 2.5 feet of water under my house. Now, luckily, my house is built a little bit above ground, and it just got in my crawl space, and it got in my garage, really bad. I mean, I've got flood insurance. But at the end of our street, as you know, where Wisteria and Lock Haven meet, that place floods constantly. There is only one entrance. And I've griped about this for years, and I get nowhere. So I just kind of gave up. Well, this time I'm really ticked. And I'm not mad at you guys. I'm just mad, why don't we get answers? We don't get answers. These people couldn't even get home that night. You cannot go up to what is it called? What the house is up from us? Brookhaven. You cannot even get up to Brookhaven. If somebody had a medical emergency, they're stuck. They could not get where that creek is, that drainage ditch and that creek is flowing into the dog park. And you guys know about the dog park. It's a constant battle. I mean, I know people that work for the city of Hoover, and I know how many times they have to go replace those fences. And that gets done promptly. Those fences get put back up quickly. But there's another entrance even to the Vestavia Knolls that is blocked, and it should be open. It's been closed for years. You know, situations like what we had that night, that needs to be open. I'm getting off into another subject, but we've got to do something about that drainage ditch. I mean, behind my house, I mean, my fence is totally gone. Everything washes down. I mean, I'm talking debris, I mean, kids' toys, I mean, yard equipment. My neighbor right here, her entire storage shed floated out of her yard into all the way across my backyard into my neighbor's yard. A storage shed full of lawn equipment. It was intense. I just can't explain to you guys how bad it was that night. I mean, I thought, where are we going to go? Because the water was even in front of our houses. It was like something you'd see on TV, like it's happening somewhere else. This doesn't happen in Hoover. And something's got to be done about that drainage ditch. Behind my house, if you go walk in my backyard, and you guys are welcome, Mr. Rice, I feel sorry for you. Because your job is really rough right now, but I welcome any of you if you want to come in my backyard and see my neighbor. And I think the pictures that the gentleman had that lives down the street from me, he came and took pictures. The drainage, the retaining wall caved in and took half of this poor man's yard. And it's just gone. And it's in the drainage ditch. So if it rains again, I mean, it's going to flood even worse. I mean, somebody's got to clean up. And I agree with my neighbor that I've called Jefferson County. Jefferson County says it's a Hoover problem. I call Hoover. Hoover says it's a Jefferson County problem. It's just they're passing the buck, and nobody wants to fix it. Just somebody's got to fix it. I mean, or somebody's going to get hurt. And another thing, on Lock Haven Drive, I've said this numerous times, and I've talked to Mr. Anderson. Is it Anderson? Really nice gentleman, about the traffic on Lock Haven Drive because of the dog park. It has increased tenfold since you guys put the dog park in. I absolutely love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors. My next door neighbor has my garage code. They can come in anytime I have their house key. You don't have that anymore these days, you know? That's the way I grew up, and that's the way I want it to be. And I love our street. Absolutely love our street. But I cannot take my dog out of the house, walking up the street without feeling I'm going to get hit. Because people drive extremely too fast. I think it was Mr. Anderson, I can't remember his name, said they were going to put like a sign up or a speed sign or something. That's not going to help. We're going to need speed breakers, or we're going to need something on our street. My daughter almost got hit yesterday going out to the mailbox to get the mail because a lady was texting and she hit our trash can. And the mailbox is here, the trash can's here. So it's a multiple things on our street, like I said, and I love our city. I know I've known Jean for years, and Mike, I'm sorry. But I'll do whatever I can to help, but I just feel like I get nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
Ms. Tant, your comments are appreciated, and they've been recorded. We thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Brandy Robinson. I also live at 3432 Lock Haven Drive. I just wanted to piggyback on everything my neighbors have already said. My husband and my family have been living there for 6 years now, and we've experienced 2 floods since then. When we first moved in, we had a in-ground pool, so it kind of took most of the water away the first time, but since then, we filled it in. And when we got a rush of water. I have a crawl space, but my bottom floor, part of my bottom floor is a slab. So imagine your daughter screaming, 5 years old, while she sees the floor implodes in front of her from water. And it was just rushing in everywhere. And frankly, I'm at the point, this is the first time since I've been this, and we're first-time home buyers, by the way. So this is the first time I was like, okay, I can't deal with this every 4 years because there's a retaining wall over here on the opposite side, but not on this side. So when the creek rises, everything rushes our way. I'm the one with the raging river in the backyard. I have 2 sheds, like my neighbor said. One went in her yard, and the other, it's a 12 by 32. And the only reason it didn't end up in her yard is because my electrical is attached. It actually kept it grounded, but it shifted the entire shed towards my neighbor's backyard. That alone is tiresome just to look at because that's work we have to put in and work that we put into it, money and time. And for nothing to be done in 6 years, that's kind of traumatizing for one, for a first-time home buyer, and two, to try to figure out how we're going to get this accomplished when flood insurance only covers so much. And then there's trees that have fallen on the fencing into our yard. And let flood insurance say they don't cover anything that does not have to do with the house. So I'm like, so who's going to fix the fencing? This is the second time. This is just, I feel like it's almost not worth the trouble for us staying, but we love it there too. We like our neighborhood, we like our neighbors. It's quiet. Granted, I know, we enjoy family, so a lot of family times happen on our street sometimes, but other than that, everybody's pretty much respectful of everyone. And I just feel like something needs to be done. And like I said, I'm just piggybacking off of my neighbors. Somebody has to do something because we work too hard to maintain what we try to build for our families, to continue to watch it go down the drain, literally. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
My name's Joel Kelly. I live at 109 Highland Crest Parkway. Been there for 19 years now. Live in the neighborhood with Susan. Seems like we've all got a creek behind our house. I've had good news and bad news all at the same time. Fortunately, my good news is the water didn't come in my house. Didn't come in my basement, didn't come in my house. So I didn't have damage in my house, which insurance could have paid for. What I had was damage, like everybody said, the water running through the pipes, eroding away my yard, and now I've got a situation that I've been told can cost anywhere from $75,000 to $89,000 just from the water coming through there. Now, it runs so fast that the creek has basically disappeared as well. You think about a creek having banks, sides, and the water goes in between. Well, now it's, it's not like it was. So I don't know what to do. I'm not going to take up the whole 3 minutes, but the thing is that this is expensive. And fortunately, I don't have the problem that a lot of these people have, which is water in your house, water in destroying all. If I had that, then my insurance company would pay for it, but they won't pay for anything in the yard. And that creek should have had some kind of wall, some kind of concrete thing. They got this concrete pipe that's, 40 inches around or 60 inches around, whatever it is, that the water came through there like the Colorado River. I mean, it was unbelievable, and I've got video on it if anybody wants to see it, and pictures of the yard. But, you know, I just think somebody needs, I've had a couple of phone calls from people, but they haven't shown up to look and talk. And I wish somebody would, you know, actually come and talk. Look at the pictures I got. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Hello, excuse me. James Ray, 981 River Chase Parkway West. Change the subject a little bit. The decision of the city to do away with a bulk leaf pickup, we've had the service since the 1960s, and just to do away with it for I don't know what reason, a few dollars, I think is ridiculous. I've got numerous trees, and I've spent 6 hours bagging leaves since Friday. I'm talking about bagging them, not blowing them up, raking them up. This is bagging the leaves, 22 bags, and the leaves hadn't started to fall yet. So for me and many other residents to have to bag these leaves after y'all have picked them up for so many years, I think is ridiculous. So if the city can figure out some way to negotiate another contract with either Amwaste or somebody just to pick up the leaves, it would be greatly appreciated. You know, it's just ridiculous. But y'all have provided the service since the 1960s, so just to do away with it, I think I can't understand it, and I'm not the only one. But if y'all can address that and maybe figure out a way to come up with another contract, it would greatly be appreciated.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cripps from 3128 Paradise Acres. I was here last time and had 2 issues, and I reported it. I just don't know who else to talk to. I haven't heard anything. One is the water rushing down Paradise Acres made sinkholes in my front yard, washed debris under my house, buried my hot water heater, that sort of thing. I'm not in a floodplain. I don't know that it was really a flood because it was washing stuff. The insurance company said, no, that's not covered. But had to replace a lot of stuff there. And the other one is the rising lake. That goes higher and higher each time. I would love to go to that meeting on November 4th, but I'm a teacher and I don't have a sub that day. That's not gonna work. Who is looking at the lake? Who is looking at the drainage that goes into the lake? Is that the engineers? Because, you know, I've been there 6 years, and since March-ish, it's flooded 4 times. Each time it's a little higher. This time, I mean, it was up at the top of the boathouse, which is, you know, 12, 16 feet above the water normally. So where does this go? Who do I talk to next? And I've got a video I would love to show the engineers of the rushing water through my yard. Took down another tree this last time. So who's responsible for that rushing water that goes through there?
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Cribs. Hello.
Hi, I'm Katie Thomas. I live at 1426 Scout Trace, and I have 3 little things that I'd like to bring up. First, Hoover has a history. Some of it's really good. You've heard people come in and talk about how the city cleaned rocks and debris from their yards from previous floods where they have drainage areas, so that's really a good thing. You've heard people talk about the promises to fix sinkholes. Maybe they haven't been fixed, but you promised that. On the bad side, the downside, it's said that U.S. Steel may have too much power or influence over Hoover's government. Those may not be things that people say out here in public, but I'm going to say it, that it's the whispers that you hear through the area. Homeowners have been complaining that they think that you don't, and I'm not saying you, but the city doesn't appreciate them, that there's a lot more focus on the new areas, like Magnolia Grove or the Preserve, and not so much on places like Russet Meadows or Paradise Lake or Hoover Country Club or Alcere. And I think that's something to be thinking about, because those are the people at the bottom of the hills and not at the top of the hill. And so what history
will you write for Hoover? Because that's where you are now. Secondly, I'd like to talk about something that's legal, and that is that in April, ADEM, the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, fined U.S. Steel and the Preserve because they were not following best management practices. What the result of that was that debris and water and pollution ran onto adjacent properties from the preserve. So environmental management has recognized that. Of course, you all, I'm sure, know about that. Undoubtedly, you know that the preserve and U.S. Steel were fined and that there was a problem. And probably the people who work in the city know that as well. But that was concluded in April. So between April and October is a long time. We're talking about 5.5 months that we knew there was a problem. You had to know, someone in the city knew there was a problem. The state identified a problem. And for 5.5 months, was it monitored? Were changes made? Was something done that could have prevented part of the damage, especially on Alcere, where the water comes right out of the preserve, down Hurricane Branch, and onto Alcere, and then eventually to Paradise Lake? Was anything done during that 5.5 months? Do we have monitoring reports? Do we have fines for the people that were already fined by the state? Was Hoover involved in that at all? Because it seems to me that if you knew and you didn't do anything, that's a bad thing. Or if you didn't know, it's a whole nother problem, but still not a good thing, right? In the special meeting on October the 12th, Mr. Reeves, our engineer, stated that the HOA must maintain their own detention ponds. Now, it says in what I call the swamp report, there's no A, but I call it the swamp report, the stormwater management plan. It says that the city is responsible for monitoring during construction and post-construction stormwater monitoring. The city has specifically stated that that's under Mr. Reeves' job, and I want to know if there were letters sent to the HOAs. There's been a conversation about water not being held at Magnolia Grove, but there's supposed to be a detention pond. Did somebody go look at that pond and see if it's functional? Were developers, for example, U.S. Steel and the Preserve, have they been contacted about any of these water problems that seem to be, water runs downhill, so you got to look uphill if you got problems down at the bottom. Our reports for Hoover for January 2021 say you're doing a great job, and yet everyone's complaining about water problems since 2014. So how can we write a report and sign off on it that says we're doing a great job when October of 2021, you have 450 homes that were flooded? That makes no sense to me.
Ms. Thomas, thank you very much.
I have one more thing I'd like to say.
Quickly, please.
I will be happy to be quick. But with all of that, I would like to ask that, I only got to 2 of my 3 points, but I would like to ask that the City Council facilitate a meeting among the homeowners and the property owners and the residents of Hoover with the people who make things work in the city engineer, the city manager, and anyone else, so that instead of us just saying we're complaining, which we hate to do that, but we need to, could we have a conversation, a two-way conversation that you all would facilitate? The last thing about that is it would be really nice if we have 3 years together, you all and me, and the rest of the people, at least 3 years. And could we be on the same team about this? I appreciate the efforts you're making, but we need to have two-way conversation about this. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Rebecca Ritchie, 4911 Twin Pines Circle. Thank you, Mr. Lyda, for answering my emails this week. I appreciate that very much. And you talked in your email about you had walked all up and down Patton Chapel, and you felt like our problems were probably partly due to the construction of Patton Chapel. Well, I hate to disagree with you, but I think you're completely off base. Our problem comes from Magnolia Grove. That is the only thing that has changed since we moved there in 1993. And ever since they built Magnolia Grove, we've had nothing but flooding problems in our yard. Y'all saw the pictures last time where it's washed away my neighbor's, the under part of his driveway. And it comes rushing down the hill from Magnolia Grove. And y'all have a property on Pineway and a property on Marywood that is in the stuff that Mr. Reeves is getting quotes on right now. I would hope that y'all would go and check out what's going on at Magnolia Grove, because I have a feeling that some of the problems on Marywood and Pineway are from that too. And I know at the bottom of Pineway on Sulphur Springs, there's a man that has 2 sinkholes. And I feel like those are contributed to by the stuff coming from Magnolia Grove. And each time we have a storm, the flooding problem gets worse. So I would like for somebody to see what's going on at Magnolia Grove, because the retention pond or something is not working right. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm Matthew Smith. I live on Paulette Drive. I'm here mainly tonight on behalf of my neighbors on Paulette Drive. We just want to reach out to you and personally say thank you for the updates and the work that you have begun. I think I speak for myself and residents that have had this happen. We're very grateful for this. We ask you, please continue updating us, and please continue working to find a permanent solution to help all residents of Hoover and the Green Valley area. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate this.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else from the public like to speak tonight? Thank you all for your attendance and your attention. We're adjourned.